Hello, everybody, and welcome back again to another Georgia Music Gamers podcast. This is,
Hello.
this is your host, Cyber, and we got a small crowd, but we have the man of the hour here with us, who's never actually been on a podcast before.
The lie. It's a
It,
damn lie.
it's the one. Well, he hasn't been on our podcast. Let's be straight. It's the one, the only. I shall call you Disco Man. Is that okay?
That's how you know me. Messing is appropriate. Hi, I'm John Matthews. I actually work in radio. Tip number one, folks, always drink water and eat your food before you start your podcast. But I'm having breakfast. So.
There's a reason why he's having breakfast at 9 o'clock at night. It's because he's not actually here on the East Coast of America. He's on the far East Coast of Japan. And
I am in fact on the coast of Japan. Continue, please.
Excellent. And that is what today's show is about. It's about life in Japan. We're going to do it from the view of a Georgia person, right? Is that fair to say?
In as much as I am from Georgia, yeah, that sounds about right.
So yeah, we're back to the interview format. We've done a couple of these in the past, and I thought it would be a cool idea to interview a person who's currently living in Japan. I mean, there's a lot of people going to Japan lately, which I think is pretty cool, just for different reasons. Some people for school, some people for vacationing. I guess the people in my age group are now older, and they can save up money and they can go take trips and stuff, So there are certain people who do that, and then there are certain people who make the decision to actually go to the promised land and make a living there. And John Matthews here, Disco Man, is one of those people. And so we've prepared a couple questions for him. And by the way, if anybody in the audience has any questions or whatever they want to chime in, feel free. We're going to go start from his time in Georgia, talk a little bit about what he's famous for in the music game community.
Let me ask you, as an educational podcast manager, administrator type guy, what should the listener walk away from this show with? What do you think the listener really should be getting from this edifying time with an enlightened Georgia man?
So I would say, if the listener leaves with an understanding of what it actually means to leave your life in America to start anew in Japan, and they have a way of doing that and a possible path, I think that we've accomplished what we set out to do here.
Oh, we gonna have that. We gonna have that. That's no problem.
But also, we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna talk about. If you have any funny Gaijin Smash stories, I'd love to hear those because those are always the best.
Oh, those are like once every couple of days.
So we'll explain what Gaijin Smash is for those who don't know what the term means once we get to that segment. But let's start. You are a Georgia native, right? We've mentioned that a couple times.
I was raised in a very small town in South Central Georgia. What part of Georgia are you from? South Central? Dave Chappelle from Robin Hood Men in Tights. That was that line. I was raised in South Central Georgia. I went to high school in Jacksonville, Florida, as a matter of fact. I consider myself a Florida DDR player, as a matter of fact, but I'm from Georgia. And I went to university in Athens, and I am from Georgia. Yeah, pretty much.
So you chose to go to, well then, okay. So you went to Florida. You went to high school, is that right?
Yeah, I went to high school in Jacksonville, and that's where I met a lot of the Florida players. Like Josh Tiger was running all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I met a lot of the Florida team and amazing freestylers, which is what I did in DDR because I wasn't good enough at tech. So I figured I'd do something I might be able to get some awards at.
So yeah, John is a notorious freestyler. And I say
That's
notorious, not in a bad way, because you were actually pretty well known for your freestyles. Uh, there,
Aw.
there's a guy in the channel. He goes by Energy. He says he knows who you are,
Yeah,
and
who is that, by the way? How do I know this person? I don't see him.
he well, I mean, as far as I know, he's always gone by NOG. He's
Hmm.
somewhat well known in the music game community. But generally speaking, like he said, he saw you at DDR Storm, and he remembered that you used to be pretty good at freestyling.
Well, when he says used to, he probably didn't go to Storm 2, which was my first DDR competition. It was bad.
Okay, how
It
so?
was bad. It was just bad. I'm not going to tell you anything like I did a turn. It was bad.
But
Don't
over time, you improved, though,
don't
right?
check up on that. Damn it! I can see you typing in the show chat. Don't check up on that. I'm
L-
gonna be really upset with you if
No,
you link that
I'm
video.
just queuing up a video that you sent me earlier, just so people can get an idea.
Hmm.
This was not from
Yeah,
Storm,
but
right? This was from.
that's from Storm. That's from Storm 3. That's me and Dolph.
Okay,
Dolph actually came to live in Japan for a little while. I finally dragged him out to Japan as well. He lived out here for a little bit. He lived at my place for a few months, as a matter of fact, when he was between apartments. But yeah,
shout outs to Dolph. Shout outs to Random Negro as he used to go by.
yes, that was his name. That was his handle. I think he actually still uses that occasionally. But he's a great photographer now, actually, and a really good dude. Yeah, I count him as a close friend.
Yeah, Dolph's been around the community for a while. I used to keep in touch with him more back in the past, and once he went off and did his own thing, like I follow him on like Instagram and some social media stuff. But yeah, I remember him being a pretty wholesome dude, pretty fun to hang out with. A couple
Yeah,
weeks ago,
yeah.
we had that DDR Storm episode, which happened this past weekend, by the way, at CEO. And some of the videos that we played in the corner featured Dolph. He was in them as well. So
Woo-hoo.
shout out to Dolph.
Yeah, actually, I brought him into the DR community, kind of like I brought him to some of the Jacksonville tournaments. The freestyle that you linked in the chat, we put together over like tons of practices in Brunswick, Georgia, because I was in Jacksonville. He lived in Brunswick. Brunswick's like an hour and a half from Jacksonville.
Right.
Easy peasy.
Oh, that's awesome. So really,
Yeah.
what you're saying is you're taking credit for bringing him into into music games.
I brought him into DDR, Japan, and photography. Although he already had an interest in all three of those things, I just kind of enabled his ass.
Nice. I guess while we're on the topic, what's your favorite Bimani game?
Oh, Dance Maniac second mix.
Specifically, Dance Maniacs.
No, it's not. It's not. Okay, so let's talk about Japan for a second because it's all I have to talk about. And so Bimani is great. Whatever. I got into Bimani a long time ago. Fourth mix. I came to Japan in 2002. There was I was in high school, and because I'm old, and I went to an arcade because I loved games, as you do. Never really played any music games before. I hadn't played Parappa the Rapper because I was lame, and I got to the arcade, and there was a Fourth Mix Plus, I think it was. Played it was amazing. Ended up buying it when I got back for home, and then played it, and then figured out, oh my god, there's this whole community and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. But Dance Maniacs, I remember being like one of the most fun Bimani games ever. But I'm going to actually play it conservative and say my favorite Bimani game is Tuna Them. Wait, that's not Bimani.
Okay.
I do love Tuna Them though. It's pretty awesome. And as you know, in Japan, they're everywhere. They're almost everywhere. Dance Maniacs, no, but close. I say poppin' music. I'm gonna shout to Wordle and I'm gonna say poppin' music. I love that game. And 2DX right after it.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I wish Wirt was here because as you mentioned to me earlier, and as some of us know, you used to you were a roommate with him for a number of years, right?
Don't tell anybody, but I think I legitimately am romantically in love with him. And I say that only half joking. I'm actually a huge fan of his. We lived together for a year, and we lived in Japan for the same year. I was in West Japan. He was in East Japan, and he's a really good dude. We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, I get the impression he was probably working tonight. I'm not really sure what his work schedule is, but if you
He would have been here, but he didn't want to
exactly,
be. That's
yeah.
fine.
Well, I mean, like it's probably something serious because he rarely if ever misses a show. So
No, that's cool. That's cool. He'll listen a little bit and be like, "Hey, Weirdo." It's all good.
so okay, so we should go back a little bit. You mentioned you were in Japan in high school in 2004. Did I hear that right?
2002. Yeah.
And so you were living there at the time, or how did that work?
I was on exchange. Okay, so I was on exchange in Japan, and that was a good thing because Japan. Let's see, the high school I went to in Florida, in Jacksonville,
Mhm.
had an exchange program with Japan, and they sent like 2 kids a year to go for a month, whereas that school would send over 2 for a full year, which I was like, can I please go to Japan for a full year to
Oh
live? And they
wow.
were like, hell no, because your classes would not count. Um, which happened again in university. I could have graduated in 3 years, but I ended up doing it in 4 and change. So yeah, went over for a month, had a really good time. Skipped a lot of class. Went to a lot of used video game stores. I think I bought my copy of Symphony, my Japanese Saturn copy of Symphony that year, or I may have gotten it 06, 07. I forget which.
Shout outs to Castlevania.
Shout outs to Castlevania. Yes, I'm a huge fan.
Okay, so then essentially what you're saying is throughout most of your teenage and early adult life, you've been in Japan. Like that's crazy.
I've been learning Japanese. I learned Japanese from when I was about 12 years old. My middle school in Georgia had a gifted class, and we learned Japanese from the PBS TV show Irashai with Tim Cook.
I remember that. I remember I used to
Oh
watch
yeah,
that like super early in the morning. They would have reruns of Irashai.
they would. Our teacher would tape it, and then she'd show it in class. And my grandmother actually would tape it years after that and send me VHSs, which was really cool. Shout out to VHSs.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, we did a lot. We did very slow. I learned how to count to 10 and say some very basic things in Japanese. But my pronunciation, as you might expect from a redneck, was pretty bad. And it continued to be pretty bad until I lived in Japan. I went into a Mr. Donut once in 2006. Again, this is my first year of college exchange from UGA to the university I went to. And I went to Mr. Donut. Mr. Donut, by the way, is the shit. You have nothing that compares. I say you, we Americans, whatever. We have nothing that compares.
You have.
Um,
I can
it's
see
just
your Japanese blood running through.
It's hard to identify who the we is because I've been here for like 11 years. Come on, man.
Right.
So I walk into a Mr. Donut and there's an angel cruller is what I'm gonna order, but it's Japan, goddammit. So it's not an angel cruller, it's an enzeru kurura. Enzeru kurura. And I can't say that. I obviously still can't say that. And they had to call the guy over who speaks English, and he's like, "Can I help you?" And I went, "God damn it."
And that's when you get a stark realization that if you're going to get anywhere in Japan, you had to learn the language, right? Properly learn.
Yes. I learned the language, damn it. I just
Well, to your credit, I mean, I've heard your what do you want to call them? Broadcasts, I guess, where you speak Japanese and you actually sound fairly respectable. I have to give you props on that.
thanks. I've been learning it for a very long time, and it's part of my job. I have to speak Japanese. It's an important thing to. Although there are times when I don't speak it in person for a long time, and that makes me feel very rusty at times. I don't like that very much.
Yeah, I imagine you. I mean, it's really just it's the whole immersion thing, right? Like the more you are immersed in the culture, the more you're forced to speak and engage with people, the better you get at it. And so I think
Like, yeah.
that's a pretty I think you're a good example of that. So listen up, kids. If you're gonna live in Japan, you gotta learn something, right? Like you can't just go in there complete foreigner and expect to get around freely.
You can if you have specific skills and you're like 45. Yes. If you do have specific skills, you can get by with no Japanese because some companies really your skills all that matters. But it's so very like if you don't speak Japanese at a really decent, good businessy level, which will take you 2 years minimum of intensive training, you will be losing out on probably 95% of roles. It doesn't mean you can't find a job. But damn.
Nice. So what? I mean, it sounds like you've been immersed in the culture for almost as long as you've been alive. And so,
Uh,
I mean, that's what I'm hearing. So, like,
um,
what
uh,
decision? I guess would be the question. What decision made you decide, hey, I'm going to move here and live there?
uh, okay, so reminder, I am from South Georgia. There's not much there. I knew I did not want to be there. That was something my dad always kind of told me. He said, "Hey, John, don't stay in your hometown." He's not from there. He was from a different town, Alabama, and my mom and dad got divorced and blah blah blah. So, I mean, I knew I wasn't. He didn't have to tell me that. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to live there for the rest of my life. It's a very small town. I mean, even somewhere like Atlanta or something like that, sure, okay, but that's a little bit too close even for me. I really wanted to just get out. And and Japan presented itself as maybe the most interesting place that I had sort of a cultural access to. I mean, we know this growing up. Like heck, Dad, you're a little older than me, but not by a whole lot, I think. We sort of came up with a lot of video games that were made sort of like the classic made in Japan, riddled with Japanese English,
Right.
but also
Yeah.
riddled with like little hints of Japanese culture here and there that you don't realize until you look back and go, oh, ha, ha, oh, Japanese. Do you remember, for example, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja for the SNES?
Yeah.
You remember
Goemon.
that?
Yeah, I remember Goemon.
Yes, Ganbare Goemon. That was the shit. Hey, Wordle. Um,
Hey, what's up?
hey.
You made it.
You did.
Yeah,
Are you waking up? Like it's morning for me. It's not for you. I know that.
I actually did just wake up. I took a nap and
So Heck Dad is like trying to cover for you, saying, "Oh, he's probably some serious thing he's working." And I'm just like, yeah, probably.
I mean, a lot of days I would be working until another 40 minutes from now.
I got you.
Well, shout outs to Wirt. We got questions for you, Wirt, later, but John was just telling us
Yeah.
about Goemon.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Legend of the Mystical Ninja and its iterations on SNES, 64, and the Japanese versions called Ganbare Goemon, a very popular series in Japan, and it's based in Japan. It's very Japanese. It's very feudal Japan. It's very cutesy. I thought it was kind of cool, and I realized like, oh, this is this place. This is kind of cool, and this was SNES. This is 91, 92, 93. I don't even know when that game came out. That you're posting right now is from 64, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Let's 64, which I loved. I played that in Japanese later, by the way, which was fun, and that's of course a shot from the Japanese version. But anyway, so you have lots of small Japanese culture leaks into your life, and then of course once if you pick up bemani like I did, if you pick up like DDR and stuff like that, like pop music and things like that, like like, oh, this is really Japanese. This is a music game in America. It's nothing like this in the roof, and some other stuff. But that was all based off of Japanese stuff. Everybody's like, oh, you play Guitar Hero. I'm like, no, I play Guitar Freaks.
Everybody knows that everything is a Guitar Hero ripoff. I mean, that's just common knowledge at this point. I'm kidding, of course.
I've had to yell at some folks. I've yelled at some folks before.
I had to correct them. Oh well, now that
Yeah.
Word's here, you guys can. Yeah, John just mentioned that if you play guitar, well, John Hannafin just mentioned if you play
Yeah.
Guitar Freaks, that makes like 5 people total. So
Exactly. Honestly, GF is fun. I love Drum Mania. Like I love Drum Mania more. Guitar Freaks was okay, but I was never any good at it.
John did a presentation on Guitar Freaks in college, and he had me help him demonstrate it.
Wait, I did. Oh, I did.
Yeah.
What? I did not realize. John Hannafin, you're talking to the original guitar. He went out of his way to do a PowerPoint.
The original shell. All right.
Like he brought a KOC to class, and was like, check out this game, guys.
Baby KOC. Hey, friends, this is a Japanese culture.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time. We had a real good time with that.
I just want you to realize that I am Chris for Life, the world famous DDR champion, CAC champion for 2017 Konami Arcade Championship. He brought his Guitar Hero 3 setup to his school to demonstrate Guitar Hero 3. So I just want you to know that you pioneered the move.
I think all of us turbo nerds had when we were kids, all of us massive turbo video game nerds had some kind, like we were sort of addicted to whatever we were addicted to, which was games of some flavor. I did nothing but play video games and go to school. That was all I did when I was a really young kid before I went to high school, and even when I was in high school to some degree. I did a presentation in. You'd always weave it into your life, right? I did a presentation in about drugs. I think it was a presentation about drugs of some way, and I used a meth is called a crank sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, expert.
No, don't do drugs, kids.
Yes. Well, this is the point. So I would, if you've played Resident Evil, the original, there is an item called the crank, and you have to use it to crank up some stuff. I forget exactly what it is. I think you like raise the water level or lower the water level or something. Anyway. And there's and like when you have the crank and you go into the place where you're supposed to use it, you press use and it says, "Do you want to use the crank?" And it shows a picture of the crank. And so I put that in my goddamn presentation. We all weave these things into our lives because we want to spend more time doing the stuff and less time doing really boring crap like doing presentations about not using drugs.
Amen.
Yeah. So I think we do this unless we're really shy, and I was at times, and sometimes I got cold feet. So yeah, my first freestyle, very cold feet, very cold, sluggish, stone, giant feet.
You want to know how John and I met?
Well, I was just about to ask. He mentioned some of the friends he used to work with, who he used to hang out with in Florida and the events he went to, and I was just about to ask, like, during your time here in America, how did you guys meet, and what kind of things were you doing? Did you run any tournaments? If you want to go down that line of questioning, we can.
I'll let Wordle. He offered, so go on.
Right,
I've kind of forgotten.
All right, freshman year of college, probably like the first week. We were both in the same dorm, and I guess the like, what do you call them, RAs, had like they'd given us an orientation, like, yeah, you can leave your doors open to like, be more inviting to meeting new people, all this business. And so I was like, all right, I guess. Like, we had these heavy doors that would just shut on their own. So like it was an effort. It's not just leave the door open, it was prop it open.
Sure.
But either way, I had my door open and I was playing Karaoke Revolution on my own.
Oh Lord.
In my dorm, and John walked by and saw me doing that.
Was that what you were playing?
Yeah, he was like, "Is that a music game in there?" And I was singing, "Yes, of course." And we've been best friends ever since.
Do you remember what song you were playing at the time?
No.
Which one? It was you introduced me to Poppin', right? Like Poppin' and 2DX was your thing. You introduced to me.
I don't know, actually. I think we kind of you helped me get a PS2 setup for it. Because like you were the one who showed me how to do a flip top mod with like Spotlight and all that.
Yeah, those good times. God, those mods sucked.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I hated doing those. I still have. I just gave my 2 Saturns away to Jeff, as I think I told you.
It was probably that song, Hector.
Oh my god.
I figured it was the most appropriate. Talking about a love story between you guys.
Yeah, pretty much. But now we did tournaments. Like I would drive his ass to tournaments every now and again. We went to North Carolina. We went to Rocky Mount once. If you want to, there's one more link, and I'll link that in a minute.
If you have it handy.
Actually, maybe Word, are you on your phone right now?
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Oh, I'll do it. But yeah, we did a freestyle one time, and it was the bomb, diggity. But we did one at Rocky Mount 4 in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which was a good time. We were there with our friend Jeff. Dolph was there too, and it was a good time. We also, I think, Andrew, you were there for the Augusta tournament, right?
Yeah, the one that you set up with the Papa controller as the prize.
Yeah, I forget who sponsored it. Yeah,
I was in that.
Didn't Drew win that? Was that where he got that controller from?
Yeah, Drew did, and I was mad about that. It was the finals between him and me.
You guys drove out to Funsville to fight it out over a Papa controller. Your life could have been very different, John, or John Hannafin, I should say, if you won that popping controller.
Yeah, you would have been a different man,
I don't
revolutionized.
Because I did try to get into popping afterwards, and I don't know. It just didn't happen at the time. I probably would have sold that thing. It was a desktop arcade controller.
I remember. I played on that controller. That controller was awesome. Well, I mean, for what it was at the time, anyway.
Yeah, I just posted the routine that that the four or five of us did at Rocky Mount.
Look at that.
That's it.
Let's see. I'm gonna play a little audio from it.
Not to me, you're not.
Tribute to Priest and Nigma.
Yes.
You want
so
to explain who those people are?
So the person last night, my time, this morning, your time, Enoji, was saying something along the lines of he was clearly the best freestyler, and I was like, hell no, he was not. The guys who I looked up to in the freestyle scene in Florida, this is before I met any of you guys because I was from Jacksonville. In terms of being a DDR players back in high school days, the guys who I looked up to were Priest and Nigma. Like they were the two best freestylers. Like Kid Jimmy was pretty cool, but I didn't like him as a human. I'm kidding, I liked him, but like for some reason that connection never hit. Like he was good. He knew how to dance. Him and Rage. Rage was awesome. Also, and they all did music make you lose control, which you should definitely link that at some point.
Yeah.
we
We showed that
we
on
had that
the
last week.
on the DDR Storm video. Yeah.
Yes. So there's that. Dolph was in that also as you Mortal Cooks, yeah. Oh, my filmmaking debut. Oh, I'm so proud of it. That was our apartment back in Athens.
You know, I've John, or rather, Wirt linked me that video before, and I never understood the context of it. So you're saying that you are the cameraman on that video? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that was me.
I have so much context now. It makes so much more sense.
We had some pretty good times. We had some pretty good times back in Athens. A lot of house parties and playing Smash and drinking a lot.
Ooh.
A lot of Smash.
Don't you still have that jacket, Wirt?
I do. I don't wear it anymore, but I do.
That's what I'm throwing you in that, like, very recently.
So ridiculous, your facial expression. What were you making? Wirt? Do you remember?
It was a stir fry of some
It was
sort.
a frozen packaged stir fry.
Yeah.
We were in college. Cut us some slack. I mean,
course.
I've got a steak marinating in the oven. Not oven, sorry, refrigerator. Everything is better these days.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we did. Perfect. So we did Augusta. We did the tournament in Augusta. I had a really good time with that as well. I was mega thin back then. Holy God! I looked at photos from that recently.
Yeah, we all were. If you have any of those photos, please share them because I've been looking for those, and I wanted to see some of the old shots of the. I mean, you can do that after the show. You don't have to do it right now. But yeah, I've been looking for photos of that event, and I haven't been able to find any.
I got some sitting around somewhere. Yeah.
So was that your most favorite event that you ran, or what would you say was your favorite event back here?
I was the CEO, chairman, head guy, chief, and primary gear lugger for the UGADRPO or the UGADITRPO, depending on how you pronounced it, the University of Georgia Dance Revolution Players Organization, which, in fairness, could have been named a lot better than that, but.
No, that was great. It got me a job. I put it on my resume.
We used to get together once. Was it once a week? Was it once a month? It was once a week, wasn't it?
I think once a week, yeah. Or at least that was
Yeah.
the intention. I don't know that
Yeah,
it lasted for whole years.
We canceled. Yeah, we canceled occasionally, but we ran it for 4 years. Well, 3 years. You know, I was in Japan for one of the years and I couldn't run it. Lewis, who now lives in Japan, also. From Columbus, who I went to university with, also lives in Japan now.
Shout out to Lewis.
Yeah. Shout out to Lewis. He's a cool guy and a good friend.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my favorite, though, it's hard to say. Where did I have the most fun? It's hard to say. I had a really good time at Rocky Mount. I had an amazing time at Rocky Mount. I love that place. But I also love that 2DX Gold freestyle.
I posted that earlier. The link is above for anybody who's watching on the stream or YouTube.
Do you remember a little while back when I went to New York, I took a picture and uploaded it somewhere of a bunch of fake money? that was
Yeah, I remember
I
that.
don't I don't
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, it
recall
was-
this, but it sounds
it was
fun.
in my backpack because it was from that freestyle, the 2DX Gold one, and I just hadn't like taken it out.
It was still in your backpack.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
Well, I mean, the reason because I hadn't been on a plane basically since I came back from Japan, so I don't know. It just seemed like fishy to have that much fake money.
So in the Gold Rush video, they basically make it rain, like literally make it make money while they're trying to.
I found a real 20 in there at one point. I remember like I picked all that stuff up afterwards, and then there was I don't know. I was just rifling through it later one day, and there was like a real $20 bill shoved in there.
Yep.
A real convincing fake. Oh, that's funny. All right, well, let's move on to Japan, right?
Yes. Hi. I'm Japan.
You are Japan, and you flew there, and I mean, I gotta wonder, like, how is it like? I guess you got somewhat of a leg up because you had been there before, so you kind of knew what to expect. But how was your first year there? Like, actually living there, making a life for yourself. How was that like?
Okay, so first of all, the difficult thing is you got to make it make money. And if you cannot take a bath in a bundle of bills, which by the way, in Japan, the smallest bill is a $10 equivalent, more or less. So if you're taking a bath in a bundle of bills, holy shit, you're probably kind of rich. Yes, you have to be 10 times as rich in Japan to make it make money to take a bath in the bundle of bills. Thank you, Michael Alamode. So for those of you who don't get that, you're in the wrong chat. So
I think most of our
I'm used
listeners are very well aware of 2DX Gold.
I'm used to making stupid jokes, and nobody gets them. So Japan. What is rest in peace, Michael Alamode. So what happens in Japan is that you come here. You have to have a reason for coming here in the first place. You have to get what's called a certificate of eligibility, and that's a hard thing to do. But let's ignore the getting in part and talk about the day to day.
Yeah. Because I think that's what people are most interested in. I would assume.
Yeah. Because the practical getting in, you have to really put in an effort to give a shit about getting in. The day to day can be tough if you're on, for example, a teacher's salary. And if you're a native English speaker, one of the most common things to do in Japan is to teach English in Japan. And it's great and it sucks. It gives you an easy route, a very easy, low skill, relatively, depending on what level of teacher you are. I'll give you a certified whatever, to get into Japan, enjoy some time here. But it doesn't lend itself to being here on the day to day for a long time, because the salary is generally pretty low. It's livable, but it's not, you can't save a lot of money. So day to day for me specifically, I actually work at home for the most part. If you recognize this voice, it's because I already know you, but if you're listening to this afterward, you don't know who Discoman is. If you listen to NPR, you might actually hear my voice in the morning, your time. Occasionally on the weekdays, I do reports for them. I also do translation media stuff. I'm on TV in China, from Tokyo, of course, in English. And I don't deliver news in Japanese, although I could if it was scripted or unscripted, but I really wouldn't want to. I do a lot of stuff, but I usually work at home a lot, so I have a lot of freedom with my life, which is a very rare thing in Japan. Telework is not that common here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah. It seems like you have a lot of freedom with your own schedule.
Yes, I have a ton of freedom, in my life. It's fantastic. I gotten very, very lucky. It's unbelievably lucky. But the day-to-day here is great because of many different reasons. The most common things that I say to people who ask me, what's it like living in Japan? I was like, well, you don't have to haggle with health insurance companies, which is important once you turn like 30-something, which I am 30-something. You don't have to deal with car insurance or a car because you don't need one, assuming you live near a train station. Although if you do live out in the boonies, you'll need a car because it's kind of important. If you're a JET, for example, which is a Japan English teaching program, or I don't remember what the abbreviation is, but you might get placed out in the boonies and you need to have a car to drive to work, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the most complicated vehicle I have to maintain is a bicycle, which is fantastic. Yeah, and
So
there
he
are
had this perk.
small bikes. Yes.
Right.
Living in the city, I live in Yokohama, by the way. I live in Yokohama, and it is an amazing, thank you. John Hannafin, Japan Exchange and Teaching, thank you. The best thing really about living in a big city like Yokohama is being able to get around really, really fast. And it's easy access to a lot of different things. Like, let's say you live in Atlanta, which you do. You don't, you live in Augusta, but a lot of people here in the chat, I know at least 2 of them live in Atlanta. Let's say, for example, you live in Woodstock. That's where I was staying when I was in town last time. Because I have a really good friend who lives there. And if you're in Woodstock and you want to go see a ball game, assuming you mean like a baseball game as opposed to a kicky ball game, which, by the way, good job, America. You're adopting soccer in Atlanta. You're doing great. I'm really proud of you. Catch up with the rest of us, please. And yeah, so you want to get from Woodstock to 285, 75 Battery Park thing. I can't think of the damn name of the field. Anyway, so you want to get to SunTrust Park. Thank you, John. And you need to drive. You need to get in the car. You need to get dressed. You should get dressed here too. You got to get in the car.
Yeah,
You have to
get
go
dressed.
I can wear a yukata. I can wear my Yokohama yukata to a baseball game, and that's like takes a second to put
With
on.
no underwear.
Don't do that necessarily. I did that in a Sonic drive-through when I was in Atlanta, which was a good time. So you drive down. You have to go to parking, and like first of all, from Woodstock, it takes what? If there's no traffic, which as we know doesn't happen. If there's no traffic, it's what, 30 minutes from 575 down to whatever.
Probably 20, but yeah, with no traffic. With no traffic, that's actually a pretty short drive.
Yeah, zero traffic, right? But that's not going to happen. So let's say 30 minutes.
No.
I mean, you're going to see a game, right? So there's going to be traffic.
Yes, there's going to be game day traffic. Okay, you get to game day traffic, and I'll make a point really fast because we're already at 40 minutes. You get there, you have to park, which takes an extra 15 minutes. You have to walk from battery parking to the park, which is 15 more minutes, if not more than that. Well, it's about 15 minutes ish. You have to line up to get tickets. You have to get in. You have to do all the thing. Like you're going to spend from door to from your door off of 92 in Woodstock to your seats at SunTrust Park. You're going to spend what, an hour minimum an hour. My ass is on a bicycle. I live 5 minutes bicycling from the stadium, from Yokohama Bay Star Stadium, which is the bomb. I go down there. I bike there in 5 minutes. I park it on the side of the street. I chain the bike up. I go in. I probably bought tickets with my credit card, which I know you can do in Atlanta. That's fine. I walk in like door to door, 15 minutes.
And you're good to go. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just, you can do things faster and more efficient in Japan because there's public transport. You're placed closer to stuff. You have less space. Like my apartment is 675. No, whatever 35 square meters is in feet, which is 375. I have smaller amounts of space. I don't have as much. I have less privacy as well. But I have so much more access to things, and it's a great country, and insurance is cheap and very well explained. You don't have to walk out of a hospital thinking, shit, I'm broke, or I'm ruined. Yeah, thanks. 376.737. You exact human being.
That's essentially a room in America.
Yes, I am well aware of that. My friend Jeff's living room is that size, and 3 times the height. So it's you make exchanges, you make trade-offs, but it's freaking fantastic.
I mean, yeah, and that's what John Hannafin's house is 3,000 square feet, so it's 10 times effectively.
You need to write off at least 2/3 of that to like baby damage. Not baby damage, he's a toddler now, I guess you would describe him as, but
yeah. But yeah, like
he's almost 4.
He's getting up there. He's about to start school, isn't he?
Kind of. We're taking him out of daycare, thankfully.
Nice.
That was
money, I saw you.
Money's way too damn tight.
Yeah.
This isn't about me. Continue.
Well,
the rent is the baby rent is too damn high.
I was gonna say, yeah, but I mean, effectively, like it's like you said, it's a trade-off. But there's a lot of efficiencies in Japan. The train, Shinkansen,
That's the bullet train. Yes.
the bullet trains that take you from like town to town, and then you've got like the local commuter trains
Well,
that
that's
take.
like you like not just town to town. Like that's like long distance travel. Usually,
Yeah.
the Shinkansen for.
Oh, but it's
Shinkansen is more like from state to state,
Yeah.
or like
if you want to go from Tokyo to Osaka, it's a 3 hour. It's 3 hours on the bullet train. It is a long way on locals and rapids. You have to transfer like 4 or 5 times, like 8 hours maybe. Yeah.
But like
So it's a long
it's
way on
so
local trains.
it's so efficient and so well planned and laid out. I mean, like you can effectively get to any point on the island in what? How many hours? Like the most remote
The
part.
most remote place. I mean, well, there's some places really like you can't get to by train. But I'd say the
But you
most
wouldn't
remote. Let's
want
say
to
like
either.
yeah. Depends, man. Japanese nature is absolutely stunning, but you can probably get equivalent somewhere closer to a train line. From Tokyo, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you. Somewhere deep in Kyushu, perhaps, even maybe northern Hokkaido, and that would probably take a bullet train plus maybe 6 hours.
I mean, that's incredible, right? Like
Yeah,
just mobility. You know, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to take a plane to get to a place unless you're going off to like one of the islands. I guess Okinawa counts. But
Yeah, like
Okinawa has
Ryukyu.
no train service. Yes, the Ryukyu Islands. Yes, oh yes, those ancient places. That's Okinawa, by the way, for those who don't know. The Ryukyu Islands of the Okinawa chain.
so, how did you get your? I guess 2 questions. What friends have you made while you're there, and how did you get your job in the first place?
Okay, so short version is I have no friends, and I hate Japan.
Oh no.
I am kidding. I am kidding. I have a lot of friends, mostly foreigners. I have a lot of Japanese friends as well, but I don't spend a lot of time with them. Unfortunately, I do migrate towards like-minded people more often than I'd like to. And I have some like-minded Japanese friends, but it's an issue of sort of communication and cultural understanding. And I mean, my yeah, it just kind of works out that way. Like one of my best friends here is from like St. Louis. He lived in Atlanta for a long time.
I bet none of your friends there play Karaoke Revolution.
I bet none of my friends play Karaoke Revolution.
That's right.
So I have a ton of friends from different walks of life, and I've met them through different areas. Like one of my better friends is a theater runs a theater organization that I volunteer with. And if you
Oh, that's
look
cool.
at Yokohama Theater Group, it's an excellent group. This makes original theater, which is hard to come by. I do a lot of support for the theater community in Japan. I've made a lot of different friends. The second question was.
So, as an extension of that, like, how did you get your job, and like
Okay.
how do you deal with people that you work with? I guess would be an extension of that question.
So I work at home, so I don't work with people directly usually. In fact, even when I go on site, like I'm the one handling. I'm a service provider basically, which means I work alone and I'm not really working in a team. So in my current roles, I picked up from either networking at my previous job, which was at a country club in Yokohama. I was communications guy / club photographer / promotions guy / event MC / ad hoc customer service / the general guy. I did that for a while. I got a job just after that, translation basically, which is my at-home job that I have now that sponsors my visa, which is fantastic. And then I also do the rest of my jobs I got via my web presence, which I have a pretty decent LinkedIn and website and a bunch of other things that I like to keep, maintain. People send me jobs, that kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
effectively people found you based on. So how did you get the job at the country club? Did you just apply
a friend
for
of
it?
mine, a guy that I had done a job with, was looking for a communications guy, and he knew me because I did some jobs with him. And honestly, it wasn't a great paying job, and I was kind of young at the time. And he's like, well, maybe this guy's pretty good at this kind of thing, and seems like a multidisciplinary kind of guy. And he called me up, and I was like, yes, please get me out of here. I was living in a really small apartment in Tokyo. I had no money. I had no money to go out and hang out with people, and I just really wasn't having a good time. I really hated Tokyo. When I lived there, and I'm thinking about moving back now that I have actual cash money, but I'm not sure.
I see. Okay. And so then
Or
you skipped from that job over to your current position, and now you're making, it sounds like you're making a pretty decent living and enjoying what you're doing, which is important. And so, I mean, since you basically dictate your own schedule, like how would you say your life is, when you're going out on the day to day, like your errands and talking to people out in the street to get things done, like your grocery, like, like the mundane stuff.
I mean, of course, I speak Japanese fine, so it's just like anything else. So one of the bigger issues that's going to happen here when you look very clearly foreign.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm trying to go towards.
Exactly. So people are going to talk to you as if you have no idea what Japanese is, or even how it's composed, or any of that stuff. Like, you have no idea what Japanese is, how to speak it, and you have to sort of preempt. You don't have to do this. You just go sort of go along with it, but you can sort of preempt them and say, hey, hey, how's it going, in Japanese on the way up, and you have to say it very loudly and very clearly. Otherwise, they think, oh my God, I just spoke English, and they freeze up. That doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to a lot of people. Now, in my day-to-day life, I often interact with the same people, like my 7-Eleven staff. Thank you for this corn dog. My 7-Eleven staff, they all know me. I've been going there for 5 years. I've been living in Yokohama, same place, for 5 years.
Right.
Grocery store, they don't know me, or they don't recognize me, or they don't remember me or anything. The bike store guys, they know me. The photography, like the camera store guys, they know me. A lot of folks that I go to all the time know me, but every day I normally have to deal with somebody. Ryan, so I think you're on voice activation or like keying up. I do always encounter someone nice. That is exactly what I just had for breakfast. I always notice somebody always will do that to me on that day. If I interact with people, it'll always happen. Someone will say, oh, he doesn't speak Japanese. And I've had people, I've walked in, like Lewis, my friend who lives here, and we walked into a yakitori place, like a chicken skewer, grilled chicken skewer place. I think it was that. And we were like, hey, we got 2. Do you have space for 2? And he looks at us and he gives us the big, crossed arms no sign in Japanese.
Oh,
no. Somebody should link an image of that. It's a very iconic, like, no, you aren't. This is not okay, and not allowed, desune. So, damn it. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Wordle. And I went and looked at him, and I looked at him back in Japanese, and I realized what he was doing. And so my voice tensed up a little bit, and I said, you don't need stock photos for that. Why is that being stock photoed? My voice tensed up a bit because I was getting like defensive gaijin for a second, and I said it to him in Japanese, perfectly fluent Japanese, and I said, "Oh, so you're full up yet? You don't have any seats?" And he was like, "Oh, you speak Japanese?" And I was like, "Yeah, obviously. My friend and I here speak Japanese fine, and we'd like to eat." And he's like, "Oh, well, I guess you can sit here." And I'm like, "You know what? No, I'm good. Next time, please check before you outright tell somebody they can't fucking come in this place." And I've done that several times. People are like, I'm very willing to put somebody on the spot for being a dick, or for being.
How do you say check yourself before you wreck yourself in Japanese?
Putting me on the spot. Let's see. I'll issue an official statement after the show. How about that? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. No.
I'm gonna attempt to do the Google Translates just to see what it does.
Please don't. Please
it will
don't.
probably do something very terrible.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, there's
probably like a phrase that effectively matches that, but
it'll be a lot less
Translate's
aggressive.
Not going to find it for you.
Yeah. Anata jishin o kuwasu. Okay, never mind. That's wrong.
Yeah, not exactly. So yes, that's a big problem, but it comes with a bit of a benefit because I enjoy my privacy and I'm used to having a lot of privacy. Yes, I live in Japan. You don't have privacy, but you do. Even though everybody is very aware of your presence, and except in certain places in Tokyo where there's just foreigners everywhere and everybody's like, oh, fucking tourist. There is this thing called the English bubble, and I'm not sure if I was the first one who used it in my own presence or if someone else mentioned it first, but I'm claiming the credit anyway. And the English bubble is where you are in an atmosphere where either everybody doesn't speak English, or everybody is expected not to speak good enough English to understand what you're saying. And if somebody does, they're not going to say shit. And in the English bubble, which you can have in most places in Japan, as long as there isn't a white guy nearby, which that's not totally true. Like different colors, yes, English, fine. If you are in a crowd of what you might think are Japanese people, you can generally say whatever in the hell you want in public. And that's fantastic. You can have a private conversation among 50 people, in a crowd of 50 people on a train, with 50 people on the train. Absolutely fine. No problem. Don't be a loud, boisterous asshole. That's a problem. But you can have a private conversation, which is fantastic. I miss that when I go to the States. When I go back to the States and I'm hanging out with friends, I'm hanging out with people, I realize that everyone understands every word that I'm saying, and I have to be very careful as to what I say. And I do not like airing out my private stuff in front of people who can understand what I'm saying.
That's interesting. So would you say that extends to like the Gaijin Smash phenomenon? Is that because I did promise at the start of the show we would explain what that concept is.
Okay, so Gaijin Smash for the uneducated is a thing where when you are peace out, Rent. When you are a Gaijins and you go in hard on a situation that is not one that would be normally accepted, or sort of that would be a taboo normally, like being aggressive in public, to get past something, like, you know, shouting at somebody in a store is not okay. Like shouting at staff, first of all, it's not okay in the first place. Like, calm your ass down, seriously. This is true for you Americans as well. If you are in a store shouting at someone to get your way, you might get your way in Japan, but it's not cool. But you are doing a Gaijin Smash, perhaps. Although I have seen like old ladies doing the same thing, and people of different age groups and genders and such. But anyway, it's doing a thing that would not normally be publicly acceptable, but people let slide because you are Gaijin, or rather that nobody else would do. Virtually no one else would do.
I think that it comes with a what's the word? A caveat of like intentionally doing something that you know is wrong, but feigning ignorance because you don't know the language, or
Yes,
implying that you don't know the language well enough. So it's like, I remember in my dorm when I was living there, they kept telling me like to stop torrenting, because they could monitor their internet traffic or whatever, and I was just like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. And they would be like, no, internet, and they would give me the big Dame sign, and I was like, no internet, no, what? And I would just keep downloading whatever.
Yep. And that is basically it. And I can't think of a situation right now where I've done that. I do try to not Gaijin Smash as much as possible because, I am here and it's sort of a long-term sustainability thing. And the more I Gaijin Smash, the more that sort of Gaijin reputation is tarnished. And I'd like to not do that.
I took pictures at one of the location tests. I would consider that a Gaijin Smash. Like the Poppin' Adventure folk test. They of course got signs saying no pictures.
Indeed. We're 2 minutes till, Heck Dad.
Yeah.
Do you have any pressing questions? I don't want to leave the listener without like something really critical.
No. We're actually, I think we've pretty much covered all the topics we were going to talk about. I did want to ask, and I mentioned this to you. Excuse me. I mentioned this to you before. I know you said you're going to be trying to start a VR channel pretty soon in the near future, and you're working out the logistics. If you wanted to get a free plug here, and maybe where people can catch you, because I know you say you take photography and you do all sorts of photos and stuff. And
well, if you're listening to this and you're a part of the DDR community in Florida, Georgia, wherever, you're welcome to have me on Facebook. You can just look me up on JonJonJapon is the current username I'm using. It's JonJonJapon, and I'll probably use that also in my YouTube and VR channel, and probably Twitch. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I've definitely got some excellent technology set up for that. And I love VR gaming. VR gaming is the shit. It's tons of fun.
That's your new obsession, as it were.
I've been playing it for about a year and 4 months, and it's really fantastic.
Which is ironic because I mean you live in a very small, somewhat small apartment, and so
I've got 8 by 8 feet. That's sufficient to play VR.
it's enough to play VR. This is his Twitter for people in the chat checking
I
that
do
out.
not use Twitter. Like my tweets are minimal at best. Instagram I'm a little more active on, but not even really these days. But yeah,
Nice.
I'm also super cute.
John is
Do
very.
you know that John unironically asked me if I had played Osu before?
I did though. I did. I asked him, and I was
He was
like,
just
"Hey,
"Have you
have you heard of this thing called Osu?"
Oh my god.
I discovered it through VR. Like there was Mikosu,
Yeah,
and
that's what I was
I
thinking
was like,
about.
"What the hell is this music game?" And he was like, "It's based on this game called Osu." And I went and looked up Osu, and it's like, "What is this? This is interesting." I bet Wordle has played this, maybe.
Do you like pizza?
Kiyoshi.
So you found out pretty late, John, but Osu's kind of like the butt of the rhythm game community. But okay, I say but it's a free game. I hesitate to use the term game. It's a Owen Don simulator that somehow became more popular than Stepmania. I think that's
Yeah.
fair to say. And you remember how popular Stepmania was back in the day.
I used to make crappy step charts. Like DM Ashura asked me if I could make a step chart for a couple of the songs, and he was like, "These are terrible," and I'm like, "I know."
But imagine Stepmania, but like 3 or 4 times as popular. Like that's what Osu is now.
Cool. Well, Stepmania had the problem of like you couldn't have 3 arrows held down at the same time on some PCs or something like that. Like that was always kind of an issue for like.
Yeah, it was mostly a keyboard input issue than anything.
Yeah, which really sucked.
And nowadays, they've gotten. I think most keyboards allow for multiple inputs. So, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Osu is kind of like it. I hate to say it, but like for some people, Osu is like the gateway drug to music games now because of how easily how ubiquitous the music is. Everybody's using music from everywhere in Osu, and so that tends to be like because it's all being combined in this one area. Now it's like, oh, I love that song by Course K and Osu, and
I love that weed music.
yeah, exactly. And so
I love
Yes.
that meme song about brain power and
What?
you've heard
Yeah.
Brain Power. I know you have. It's an
I have
Osu.
not.
it was in the GDQ that they showed off Stepmania.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Stepmania, I guess. But like at the time, they were like, "Yeah, this is this cool song from Osu that we're playing in Stepmania."
So when you have a minute, listen to this later.
I'm not going to unless you let me.
I mean, you have to be ready. Like,
So-
I don't think you realize.
So if I can sort of jump onto that for a second, sort of Beat Saber, which I'm sure
Yes.
you've heard of Beat Saber. Blake and I have talked about Beat Saber a fair bit in channels on this Discord. But Beat Saber is sort of the pinnacle at the moment of rhythm gaming in VR, and I'm really excited about it. I thought it was gonna be crap, and it's missing a little bit, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it's actually been pretty well received by a lot of people and people who have VR. I mean, like that's the thing, right? Like VR is still kind of in its infancy as far as number of headsets that are owned by folks and stuff. So it's a bit more. It's not as widespread, but I think in due time, as more people get more of the VR headsets and set them up in their homes, we'll see more people playing the game. But like even now, there's a pretty healthy customs community. People making their own charts and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
I have a lot of those songs because I'm a big fan, Destiny.
And mods and all that stuff. So it's neat to see the people who are playing it like not only like enjoying it, but like spreading the word. So it's pretty cool.
And that's the reason why I want to do a VR channel is because even though like I've got a job, like I don't need to affiliate or anything, but I'm fine on time. But I do really enjoy VR, and I feel like I could have a really good time doing a VR stream.
Yeah, you should,
and I
man.
love to learn that a bit more. I did some streaming before. If you look at my Facebook, like way back, I have a couple of VR videos, but those are really old.
Well, I'll be checking it out when you whenever you get it going, man. And I'll be sure to put, whenever you get it going, we'll give you a plug in a future show, so
Newt.
that way people are aware of what you're doing. Before we go, do we have any questions? Did we cover enough, guys?
Yeah, guys, Japan, it's fun.
Anybody? Anybody? Bueller?
It was a good talk.
Thanks. I hope I was sufficiently entertaining. Oh, someone's typing something. Let's see.
This is Isaac. He constantly changes. Will Mr. T visit us? Oh yeah. You said you know Politeri.
So, Mr. Terry?
No, Thomas Lichtenstein.
Only on Christmas. So wait, no, that wasn't that song. That was something else. Silent Hill is a Christmas song.
It is.
Anyway,
Hold on.
so I do know Paula Terry, but not personally, unfortunately. She's a friend of a friend, but she's apparently really cool. Oh, and by the way, like all of these bemani, what are they called? Artists, musicians. Like they're all so accessible. They're all really not all of them, but a lot of the 2DX. Like I saw Nochin, one of my favorite songs in 2DX is "Rock Me Now." I know Terry Gross as well, as per NPR. But like Nochin does concerts in Yokohama, like 5 minutes from me, somewhat
cool.
frequently. Like on his birthday, he'll do a little show.
Yeah, he just recently released a new album called Hot Box, I guess it was called. I think it was a Cheech and Chong like 40th anniversary or something.
Y'all,
The
speaking of which,
album is or like the art is very Cheech and Chong inspired, I think.
Yeah, it coincided with like the 40th anniversary or something of Cheech and Chong.
y'all, weed is very hard to get here. Don't try.
Weed is very illegal. They will put you away for a very long time if they catch you. So
You will go to the jails for a while.
Unless you gaijin smash your way out of it.
That's very unlikely. Police do not put up with that shit.
Keisatsu.
Yes.
They will lock you up.
They'll block you up and then they'll lock you up. A common tactic is when somebody's when they want to detain somebody, they can't really detain you, but if they surround you with 10 guys and you can't really like get anywhere and they're in a circle around you, literally like sort of like crowding you, you can either assault a police officer or stand there and endure questioning and possibly be led to a police station.
So please don't do illegal drugs in Japan. And please don't do anything that will get you in trouble in Japan. We've already have enough Jake Pauls in the world, or whatever that kid's name was.
I have no idea who that is. I have no idea what we're talking about.
That was Logan.
Yeah. Logan Paul, guy?
That guy.
Oh, you have no idea how much the community wanted to nuke that guy from orbit. Like literally nuke it. Like whatever city he lived in, just remove it. Like LA, gone. No problem.
I believe it. And it was bad.
You're thinking of Paul Hogan.
No, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
I'm also not just on knife. Paul and Terry Hogan. Anyway.
The first one was right. All right. Well, yeah. I think we're at a good spot in the show. I mean, I really appreciate the time. I know it's kind of early for you. Well, it's probably 11 o'clock over there now, right?
It's early. It's early for my sleep schedule. I went to bed like 6 hours ago.
No, man. I told you not to do it. You didn't
tell me. You didn't tell me shit.
But no, really, I really appreciate it. I think it's awesome that you take some time to talk to us about this, and I think it was a pretty fun time. So.
Yeah, I had a nice time. Thanks for inviting me to come out. And I'm sorry I didn't do this while I was in Atlanta. That would have been fun. But
it's not a big deal. Well, you did mention that you might be coming back sometime in August or something. Is that right?
Mid-September is the plan for business, but I'm not entirely sure yet.
Okay. Well, keep in touch. Let us know. We could probably do another little shindig like this.
Yeah. And if anybody has any tips about gaming stream production and stuff like that, please hit me up on Discord because I could use the tips.
What is that word? Okay, well, it's always time to end the show when Word starts posting memes. So
What the hell is this word?
I like the blushing on the car door.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. All right, well,
Thanks for the invite, man.
absolutely, man. I think next week we're going to we're still on the stream, by the way. Next week we're going to be doing a possibly a part 2 to this series. We're going to get Nathan in here. He goes by Penguin Man colloquially. He's another Georgia native that now lives in Japan, and we'll be asking him, similar questions, but also some stuff about what he does for the community now. And as always, thanks again for listening. I appreciate it. This has been your host, Cyber, and that was John, Discoman.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.